This week on the Tech on Tap podcast, we talk about what NetApp is doing at VMworld 2017, as well as the newest release of the Virtual Storage Console.
Welcome to the Tech on Tap podcast with Justin Parisi, Glenn Sizemore, and Sully the Monster.
I love NetApp.
Oh, yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Tech on Tap podcast. My name is Justin Parisi. In the studio, we have a full house. A lot of virtualization guys here because coming up soon, VMworld, right? Am I like way too early for this?
Week and a half.
Week and a half. That is not a very long time in tech years.
Or a lot of seconds.
Or seconds or something. I don't know. So VMworld, what's going on? What are we doing there, Andrew? What are you doing there? Containers?
Well, yes, I will be talking about container solutions and stuff like that. So I will actually be in the booth. I am what we term a floater, I suppose.
A booth babe?
Let's be honest.
I've called you worse things than a floater.
So let's be honest. I got a face made for radio, and there's a reason I do a podcast. But
definitely looks like a floater to me.
No, one of our guests today, sitting directly across from me, Mr. Chris Gebhardt. He is the tech lead for the booth, and he has asked me to kind of help out anywhere and everywhere that he needs me to. So I am. I won't use the colorful language to describe my position inside of the booth, but I'm.
So you're Gebhardt's floater.
Yeah.
Yes, I am 5 years old.
That seems. Yeah.
All right. So, hey, it's Chris Gebhardt. I didn't see you sitting there on my
How's
right.
it going, guys?
Hi. So, Chris, if you could tell everybody what you do here at NetApp.
Sure. So I'm a principal technical marketing engineer focused on virtualization, end-user computing, and basically anything that I'm asked to do. So I do wear quite a few different hats, really just focused around the VMware space and virtualization in general.
Also in the studio today, no stranger to the podcast, Mr. Steven Cortez. Hi, Steven. Could you tell everybody what you do here at NetApp?
I am a virtualization technical marketing engineer.
Short and sweet. I like it.
Yep.
So if we want to reach either of you on social media, how will we do that? Starting with Mr. Gebhardt.
I'm at Chris Geb.
And Steven Cortez.
MSC Productions.
All right. Got that out of the way. So,
wait.
Oh, wait, hey.
I want to step back a moment here because I think that Mr. Cortez is doing himself an injustice here. He's not just a TME. He does a lot of other stuff in the VMware community. And
oh, yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Let's back up. So, we run the bus over Cortez. Let's back up the bus over Cortez a few times. Okay, Cortez, tell us a little more about what you do in the community, since this is a virtualization-themed podcast.
I'm the local VMUG leader here in Greensboro, North Carolina. I've been doing that for the past 2 years now. And, yeah.
Is that it?
Member.
A-team member, yes.
Oh, I forgot about the A-team member. Sorry.
Well, oh, Sam Moulton's going
Sam's
to
gonna
have
tell
your
me.
head.
we won't tell Sam.
Don't tell Sam.
Oh, no, I'm
Don't
telling
tell
Sam.
I'm sorry,
That's
Sam.
Staying in. That's staying in. So that's all? Just VMUG and TME and A-team member?
Yeah.
No hot DJ gigs?
No, not anymore.
All right. So Mr. Cortez is a virtualization celebrity in the local town of Greensboro, North Carolina. So, hi. Pleased to meet you. I'll get your autograph later.
Sure.
Anyway, all right, so VMworld's coming up, and I am sure that we have tons to talk about, and we'll also talk a little bit about the new release of the Virtual Storage Console 7.0. But let's touch on VMworld first, because that is what is coming up in the near future. So what are we doing there, Chris?
Oh, we have hours and hours of content to talk about here as to what we're doing, but I think we probably should just talk about the highlights and kind of the timeline of things that are happening. First, I think we start with Vajbal. We have a participating in the Vajbal, and I believe it's to support the Wounded Warrior Foundation. And so we have a team of 10 of our premier athletes here at NetApp that are going to be participating in the Vajbal tournament. I am not one of those premier athletes. I am actually going to be setting up the booth and making sure things are right for when the show floor opens. We also are going to be participating in the VM Underground party prior to the event on, I believe that's, is that Saturday night? Or is that
thought it was Sunday.
It could be Sunday night, yeah. Participating in that. Have a couple of the gentlemen from NetApp, Jeremiah Dooley and Gabe Chapman, are going to be our sponsors for that event, and I think we'll be doing some meet and greet and hanging out in the VM Underground party.
HCI party.
No, it's
No?
not that. No,
It's not?
No, that's maybe on Monday. We'll see. Yeah. So. Yeah, we've got a couple of we've got a booth in the Solutions Exchange, if that's what they're calling it this year. We've got different events planned for each day. We're not going to let you know what they are yet, but you'll have to stop by. We've got mini theater sessions in the booth. We're going to be doing this year technical talks and just some standard corporate stuff. So we're going to be changing it up. We've got 5 or 6 different sessions that are going to be happening throughout the week. And so it's something that we're going back to again versus just the standard corporate messaging, which is good. But this will give you some real deep technical deep dives. Our VIP program, we've got executives and technical experts that are available for meetings to go into some challenges that you as a customer may be having, things you may want to explore, meet with technical experts and some of our executives. We'll provide some links in the show notes and the blog to where people can go sign up if you're internal or you're an external customer. So those are good. People that go to those can also will be invited to the VM to our party. We have a VIP reception, so that's something that is always a good time. You can meet and greet and chat with the experts and the executives from NetApp.
So I think I told you, Chris, that at one point the most popular search term on NetApp.io was NetApp VMworld Party.
Yeah, and it usually is. People want to know where to go, what to do.
Yeah, so in that line, right, the only NetApp specific after hours event is going to be the VIP party. So for any customers, partners, account teams, etc. that are listening, if you want to be invited, you have to attend a VIP meeting.
Yeah, and bring your toughest questions too.
Yes, please.
Right, we want to make sure that we answer those. We do have another opportunity to talk about deep technical things, and of course that's in the booth, where we'll have our technical marketing and our highest level solution architects in the booth to be able to, do some whiteboarding, see some demos.
I hear there's a new booth design this year.
There's a brand new booth design. Yeah, it was actually, this is our second time using it, so it's still fairly new, and it's going to be interesting. We'll see how it works out. We've done, over the years, we've had multiple different designs, and this one I think maybe, even though we have a couple features of the booth that are, let's say, enclosing, this one may give us quite a bit of room for the space that we have on the floor. So.
Yeah, and the first time we used it was Cisco Live.
Cisco Live, yeah.
So they worked out all the bugs for us, made sure anything that was going to break was broken there, and
And then we tore down some walls. We're going to have a hardware pavilion.
Literal or metaphorical?
Literally, we tore down walls. We wanted to open it up because we've got some new and exciting things that we're going to be bringing into the booth. We've got our SolidFire, our FlexPod SolidFire, FlexPod SF. We'll have that in the booth, as well as the FlexPod Data Center with the all-flash FAS. And then we're going to have a preview of the HCI solution that we have coming out in October. So it will be.
So what does preview mean?
Well, we're not going to have hardware in the booth, but what we will have is a virtual HCI system using technology from Kaon that will allow you to be able to explore the hardware, kind of see what it does, in a virtual instance versus a physical box.
Very cool. So
yeah.
The next best thing to, poking fingers into, Ethernet ports and
Exactly. Yeah. So it will hopefully give, and the idea is yeah, it's great. You could see, an HCI system, but when you can explore it in more depth, and we'll have experts there as well, but you can actually get into the hardware and look at the system more in more depth than you could with a physical piece of hardware. So it should be a good experience.
So, Dr. Desktop, do you do you happen to have a list of sessions that we'll be presenting at VMworld?
At first, I'm not a doctor, but let's clear that up.
Do you play one on TV?
But I do. Yes, I do.
I will maintain that as long as I
may play it in a
possibly can.
podcast here and there. So we've got some sessions. We've got 2 sponsored sessions that NetApp is putting on. We are currently, we don't know what the rooms are. That should be decided tomorrow, I believe. But what we do have is we have 2 sessions, one on end-user computing with the NetApp portfolio with a big focus on HCI. So myself and some of the team here at NetApp are working on reference architectures and designs for our HCI system for end-user computing. And that session will be, it's ADV 3310 BUS. And that's Monday, the 28th from 5 to 6 p.m. And myself and one of our solution architects for HCI, Jeremy Hall, will be presenting that session. And then we have another one that is more of a general HCI session, which really focuses on the simplicity and enterprise scale of our HCI solution. And that's STO 3308 BUS. And Gabe Chapman, who's the senior manager for the HCI solution architect team, and Cindy Goodall from our product management team, she's one of the product marketing managers for HCI, is going to be presenting that on Tuesday late morning, actually, 11:30 to 12:30. So, yeah, we've got those 2. Attendance is looking really good right now, so make sure if you have interest, please sign up soon. Otherwise, we can't guarantee space in the room.
You could always come to NetApp Insight and come see some more HCI stuff. So I'm guessing we're going to have a little bit of that there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these
absolutely.
are sneak previews of the HCI stuff.
What's
the
this-
real stuff's coming
What's this insight you speak of?
It's this place where you go and you do lots of work, and that's it.
Yeah, I just based on part of my role as the VMware Tech lead for the show is that I have to I pair companies, customers with the executives based on what they want to talk about, and then the tech team. And I could tell you right now that I've never seen a volume of meetings come in like this for any product. So HCI is going to be front and center with what we're doing. The attendance for the sessions is actually really, really good for this early. Usually people, the ones that really want to get in early, start filling out their schedules, the people like myself who I'm going to attend sessions, I'm just going to probably start doing that next week and getting my schedule all booked out. So it's, sign up sooner the sooner the better, because otherwise, we can't guarantee. We have a finite number of meeting slots. We have a finite number of seats in the sessions. And so it's a red hot topic.
So, Chris, I also heard that we might be losing control of our booth for a little bit on.
I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I will say that we will have the Code On. The pub will be making an appearance in one of our demo stations, and so you can come and talk to Josh Atwell or Andrew Sullivan or Aubrey, and you can have some conversations about how to automate, orchestrate, and DevOpsify your enterprise, right?
If you wanted to check out more information about FlexPod SF, you can go to episode 94 of the podcast. Or if you want to check out the HCI information, episode 89. If you can't get into the sessions, that's a suitable substitute for the session is the HCI podcast, if I do say so myself. Anyway.
Sounds good.
So what else are we doing at VMworld? What are we doing there? Anything else?
Got some demos. We're going to have a little Mr. Cortez is working on.
What are you working on over there, Cortez? Besides a giant coffee? That is a coffee, right? That's not like liquor.
That's a kid size. What are you talking about?
It is
yeah,
coffee.
sure is.
It is coffee.
Double mochaccino frappuccino.
Nah, just regular coffee.
Well,
Yeah, we
Smoking
have a-
Frappuccino. Anyway, go ahead.
We have a bunch of demos regarding the new version of VSC. Just showcasing all the new magic that it has, and also the Snap Center integration with VMware. That's a new thing that we have now. We're going to showcase it.
So, are you bringing Spinks along, or are you just doing this solo?
Solo.
That's good. You don't need Spinks anyway. He's dead weight.
He's not dead weight.
No, Spinks is cool. We have him here all the time. All right. So, VSC 7, you mentioned that. So, what sort of magic is in this new product?
So
Fairy dust?
Yes. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors now. So for one thing, before it was 3 individual pieces that you would have to install, and on 3 individual servers to make the ecosystem work. So if you had you wanted the VASA provider, you wanted the virtual storage console, or you were using the storage replication adapter with SRM, then those are 3 separate things you had installed, trying to make them work together, etc. And sometimes it didn't work so well. What we did now in the new version is unify them. So we have now one appliance that we provide. It's Linux based, and we deploy via OVF, and it has all 3 of them installed, ready to go. You can turn them on individually. You can configure them individually, but they're all now packaged in one nice little bundle.
So my first question is, what's the resource requirements for that virtual machine? Because I know historically people have had concerns about those separate appliances and the amount of CPU and RAM that we would ask for.
Since we moved to a Linux environment, they actually went down. So instead of having the 3 individual, like you would have 2, like minimum was it 2 CPU, 8 gig of RAM or something like that per virtual machine. You needed 3 of them. Now it's more pared down to having just two CPUs and 8 gig of RAM for the total appliance.
Very cool. So not only do you no longer need Windows, which is a license savings.
Yes, you save a bit. Yeah.
You also can cut at least by half, if not 2/3, the resource requirements on that virtual machine.
Correct. And if you have bigger environments, that helps us also. I mean, you just give it more resources to that one VM, and you can scale up or scale down. So if you're in the lab environment, you can go as smaller. But if you actually are doing a lot more VMs, then you can give it more horsepower.
So, stupid user question here, and it's going to be probably an obvious answer, but if I'm setting up a virtual storage console VM, do I want to do that in the same environment that I'm trying to manage, or do I want to have a separate environment? I mean, what if that VM goes down and I can't manage my environment? How do I handle all that?
No, it won't cause problems. Actually, now having this on as a Linux appliance, this will give us future improvements to introduce HA. That's kind of roadmap feature that's coming soon, where we will have specifically for the VASA provider, where if you're using vVols, it's very important to have the HA features. So we'll be able to scale that.
Yeah, so I think it's important to point out, right, that so it's one appliance with 3 features. So virtual storage console, which is sort of the focal point for doing storage management. I'm sure Steve has many, many more things to talk about when it comes to VSC 7 and what's inside of there. So if that's unavailable, right, really the only thing that you lose there is the ability to have in the integrated vSphere console, right, that entry point or that viewpoint into your NetApp empire.
Yeah, but you still can use vSphere fault tolerance and vSphere HA
Absolutely.
to be able to protect the appliance and its functions. And so most of it's out of band, like Stephen said, with the ability to protect the VASA provider. You still can, the virtual machines will still run, but powering on and powering off the virtual machines requires the VASA provider for vVols. And so what we're doing in a future version is we're leveraging the VASA high availability so that it will redirect to a standby server eventually, right? So it's not, if you can tolerate the vSphere HA failover times, then, if you do have a host go down, what have you, it will just restart on another VM, another host.
And if the SRA is unavailable, it doesn't trigger. So if you wouldn't have normal updates, right, the SnapMirror updates for the SRM side of the house, and of course, if there were a disaster, Well, no, you would trigger from the
Destination.
Yeah, the destination, so that wouldn't affect. So yeah, I have, a lot of organizations deploy a separate management cluster that they have all of that stuff in, perfectly acceptable. A lot of organizations don't, also perfectly acceptable, right? Acknowledging the slight risks that do exist.
Cool. Good to know. So, friendly reminder: we have qualified vVols 1.0 for ONTAP 9.1 and later.
Absolutely.
So, just so in case you want to use vVols and then the goodness of VSC 7.0, it's there. So, what else is in VSC 7.0?
We have two new things that are available to the VSC console. As soon as you log in, you'll see a brand new performance dashboard, where you'll see different metrics on IOPS being used, your storage consumptions. You can drill down into lists of what's your most busy IO VM, most storage consumed VM. You can also we have a reporting feature now where we'll see data store and virtual machine usage, which we can then pull into CSV reports.
I can't tell you how excited it makes me that there's finally performance dashboards in Virtual Storage Console. I think this has been the number one feature request for like 5+ years.
Can we do anything with those? Can we do QoS or any management from there, or is it all just monitoring?
Right now, it's monitoring.
Right now, you say.
Yes.
What else do we have? Performance dashboards. We have anything else that's good?
That's the main things that are new. Mm-hmm. We have actually one big thing that's different that we removed from the traditional VSE, which is backup and recovery. That's the big one. Traditionally, it ran all in one product on the VSE, and that was great, but it was very limited to scale because of the way it was built. It didn't have a real database behind it. It was a flat file XML file that held all your information for the metadata.
What could go wrong with that?
Well, nothing. You just can get corrupted. You lose everything, or it's too slow to index. Just
back up your file, man.
Well, we had this awesome product available to us, which is SnapCenter, that does this natively. It does a great job about it. It has a database backend, and it's scalable. Everything is great. So, it made sense for us to move that portion from the VSE to an actual backup and recovery product that we have.
Yep. So, SnapCenter 3.0 podcast episode 98. If you're interested in that, Andrew, did you have something to say?
I was going to ask Chris, what was the original backup and recovery plugin called? The one that was written in Perl and executed as a separate script.
It actually, before it was anything, it was there was a couple utilities, the NAVI util and NAVI clone, I believe, which were Perl executables that ran. And so those were the starting of the
and this is like 2008, 2009.
This is 2008.
Days.
Yeah. It was one of those things that that we had just discovered that engineering had been using this internal code to create virtual machines pre-deduplicated, right? So metadata copy only. And we said, well, heck, we should be able to use that for cloning things like virtual machines. And one of our former TME colleagues decided that he would write the script, because I had been tasked with creating a 10,000 seat reference architecture and I'm like, well, I can't, this is before the days of PowerShell or super early days. And I just didn't have the means to be able to do this through an automated method, right? So he then created this capability for a mere mortal, as Sully would say, to create tens of thousands of virtual machines. And later that was followed on by a utility that was created for backup and recovery, which was called Vibe, which was Virtualization Infrastructure Backup Engine, and that was written by, again, a former colleague of ours. He was actually in professional services, and he wrote this tool to solve the need of having an orchestrated backup engine for VMware. And so we've basically then taken it and created the Snap Snap Manager for Virtual Infrastructure, SMVI, which was the next iteration of the tool, and kind of in the 2010-2011 timeframe rolled this into a plugin. I actually remember, I want to say it was VMworld 2009. Where one of our colleagues had created a web front end to this, and we actually demoed this capability at VMworld, and it was one of those. It was a more of a proof of concept, if nothing else. That when we saw it, it was there was a couple managers and within NetApp that were a bit leery about us, producing this and creating this. Because it wasn't an official product, but it really did show that the advanced capabilities that nobody in the industry had. And so, now that cloning has become, kind of more table stakes for storage arrays, it's not. It's something that we are continuing to invest in new features and things that are unique to NetApp.
I remember that demo as a customer.
Yeah.
So we went from Vibe to SMVI to backup and recovery plugin, and now we've taken it back out of VSC itself and brought it or moved the functionality over to Snap Center.
Absolutely.
Which, as Steve mentioned, right, was really a scalability play, right, where we're going from this XML file that tracked metadata into this thing called a database. I guess it's a new thing. I don't know. So I know we've had John Spinks, right, the Snap Center TME on the podcast a number of times, right? Scalability inside of there is well beyond, I think, anything that we want to or should be concerned about.
Well, it's that and its features, right? I mean, the Virtual Storage Console was a great tool for VMware admins to be able to take backups of their of data stores, right? But when you're really talking about enterprise level backup and recovery, you have to concern yourself with way beyond just the data store. You have to worry about, what is the data that's in there, right? And how do you interact with that? And so you have to back that up as well as the data store, right? So it's the whole concept of Snap Center, right? I mean, and I'll probably get shot for using this term, but it's the Snap Manager of Snap Managers, right? It allows us to be able to not only do the data store stuff, but also do the applications that live within a virtual environment. So that's really where the whole vision is that that SMVI and backup and recovery, while it met a specific need, it didn't extend to what companies actually really need, right? So this wraps it all into a UI that the VMware admin can interact with, as well as the backup and DR groups.
So backup and recovery it's changing, but it's definitely changing for the better. So that was definitely, for once, I was the one who took us off on a rabbit hole there, Justin. So you're off the hook this time. So VSC 7, we introduced scalable, right? Snap Center integrated backup and recovery. We introduced performance dashboards, which I think are fantastic. But we also kept a bunch of stuff which has also had its own improvements, right? Incremental improvements in functionality. So, Mr. Cortez, can you elaborate on any of those things? In particular, one of the ones that I always liked is using the provisioning wizard, right? The provisioning tools inside of VSC.
Yeah, that's correct. So the provisioning stuff is always there, and it continues to follow NetApp's best practices. We have obviously the host and storage based monitoring tools that are available to us via the VSC. One thing that we updated is the host recommended settings for ESX65. So now when going forward, we'll have all the latest and greatest recommended settings. And that alone saves customers a lot of troubleshooting tickets, because it sets the values to the correct things that we need to have to make the storage run correctly. So if nothing else, that's an option that the customers should run to make sure that their systems are running at the best recommended settings, so that we don't have to troubleshoot that any further.
Yeah, I would say that it's actually they're recommended settings. They're not required settings. And so what the difference is that during a let's say an HA event, right? It will perform in such a way, and it will perform better with our recommended settings, right? One of the things that we set is queue depths, right? We want to make sure that we optimize the queue depths for the different platforms, right? Certain platforms behave better with larger queue depths, AFF, for example. So it's not a requirement, but it's something that's highly recommended to make sure that your environment is resilient and performs optimally. That is all.
I expected more out of that. You were going and going.
I know. I could continue to go.
That was very abrupt.
Yeah. But like Steven said, it keeps you out of the support center. And if you do nothing else with it, right, just using it for setting those values is, at a minimum what we would recommend, right?
So I did see that there was an update to the ONTAP best practices.
There was, and that TR went out a couple months, like a month and a half ago, and that does contain, I don't know, I think it's a page and a half of things that we set in the VSC that you would otherwise have to go through and either script or what have you, and they're all the advanced properties within vCenter.
And I will also say, since I'm no longer responsible for VMware best practices, please send Steve and Chris all of your feedback on that documentation.
There's actually a link in the back of the TR that will. Yeah, thanks, Solly.
It's a contact us link.
There's a contact us link, and so that one will get sent to the authors, and they will review it and make updates as required.
Yeah, I say that because the VMware best practices TRs are always consistently the most popular, the most downloaded, coming off of all of our various mechanisms and all of our forums. So I know that they're hugely popular. I hope that they're beneficial to everybody. But I know that these guys also work really hard in order to make sure that information is good and useful.
Yeah, and at the very least, I mean, if you set those values, it's going to at least eliminate that hoop you have to jump through if you have to call into support. Because I'll tell you what happens. You call in and you get that first guy and he says, well, did you apply these settings? And it may or may not fix your problem, but that is going to be something you're going to have to do so they can move the case forward. So go ahead and get that done first and get that out of the way. We've tested these settings. We've made sure they work in environments. So just do that, please. So, yeah. Not requirements, but definitely recommendations for sure. All right, so VSC 7.0 sounds pretty great. We got new backup capabilities. We got some performance graphs and lots of other goodness in there. What about the VASA provider? Anything changing there?
It's now an appliance.
Yeah, that's the big change. That it's an appliance now.
Single appliance, yeah.
So what's the benefit of doing that versus how we've been doing it?
Well, so in the architecturally, when we look at having three separate appliances, the ability for us to, the VASA and VSC and SRA were all separate. They all had their own ways of doing things, right? So what we did was we unified and are using a single database to store all the information across all three tools so that now it will give us a better platform to develop on in the future as a single appliance. And so I think that's really, it's one of those things that is, it's a NetApp internal thing that we can now, leverage for other things that the customers may not see as a benefit today. But definitely in the future, it's going to give us a lot more capabilities to not have to, for example, provide credentials to three different tools, right? We can use a single tool to do that. Or if you did want to, you could use multiple different credential sets for, because you have different defined roles within your organization. So it does give us some capabilities to be able to develop on in the future.
So essentially, we've simplified the deployment with OVFs. We've combined the three platforms into one, so that simplifies management. And we've also increased the performance on all that as well. So that sounds pretty good. I mean, I can live with that personally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, it looks like we just polished the UI, but
You said you polished it?
yes, we polished the UI. Underneath the covers, a lot of work has gone through to give us a future-proof environment so that we could implement a lot of these capabilities that we're talking about, since we now have a unified location for everything. Or instead of storing credentials 3 different ways, we have one way to do it. Then from there we can expand it to making the appliance clusterable and be able to scale as large as you want it.
So we talked about Virtual Storage Console and its improved backup and restore capabilities. We talked about the VASA provider and its now consolidated single appliance simplified management interface. So the third leg of this proverbial stool is the storage replication adapter, right, which is the hook into VMware's Site Recovery Manager, aka SRM. So what's changed with SRA 7?
Well, the installation and configuration has been simplified since we now have it as a unified appliance. Being that it's an appliance, we have the ability to scale it better. We have no dependency on the VASA provider. Before they had to be, since now they're all together, we're good to go. We support link mode, VMware link mode support, and we have multi-tenancy support.
SRA 7 is a bit of a leap in versioning numbers. Actually, I guess it's a leap in versioning numbers for the VASA provider as well. Only Virtual Storage Console, it seems to be progressing. But at the same time, I also know that the most of the time we were recommending a specific version of SRA, or historically we've been recommending specific versions. So can you give us a little bit of background, a little bit of update on that?
Sure. Traditionally, we were recommending to utilize the 2.0 version. It was the most stable at the time. But the new version, the SRA 7, includes all the patches and fixes that we had in the 4.0 release are now rolled up, and with the additional enhancements for the scalability and the configuration ease are now built onto SRA 7.
Gotcha. So more or less our recommendation is now for everybody, right? Instead of, let me rephrase that, right? Historically, the recommendation was 2.x with specific exceptions for this is why you want to use 3.0 or 4.0.
Correct.
Our updated, now that we've released 7.0, SRA 7, is everybody use 7, right?
Correct. And then it also is it's future-proof, right? So all the new versions of VMware are supported.
Gotcha. So aside from this whole simplification and unification side of things, right, SRA 7, is there any new features and improvements, right? I remember back in my VMware days, right, everybody was asking about things like, do we support version flexible SnapMirror? Do we support SnapMirror, SnapVault, unified targets, etc.? Has that changed?
Yeah, so yes, we do. As of 4.0, we actually started supporting versions flexible SnapMirror, and so really what that is for customers that are doing replication today or prior, it was you always had to make sure your destination was at the same version or higher than the source. And so now we moved to a different backup engine that allows you to be able to replicate between different versions, higher or lower, within the same. For different versions of ONTAP. So much more flexible, as the title suggests, version independent, version flexible SnapMirror. And so that is now something that VSE 7 supports. So with the SRA in 4.0, we actually released a couple features. The ability for you to do extended data protection, where you have the ability to vault and SnapMirror to different destinations within the SRA, right? So you can't do the cascaded SnapMirror relationship, but you can go to multiple destinations, some being vault, some being SnapMirror destinations. Multi-tenancy, as Steven said, that was a capability that we introduced in the 4.0 release that is also carried on into the 7.0 release. And so those are really the big things that we introduced in prior versions that are still in 7 and are actually, I believe we've improved the scalability significantly, and done a couple bug fixes here and there, but really about the same that in the 4.0 offering.
All right, so we've talked about VASA, we've talked about Virtual Storage Console. We've talked about SRA, right? All new, they're not all new. They're all updated. They're all unified into a single appliance now, which is just fantastic work. I can't say how much that really makes things awesome to me. So VMworlds, right? VMworlds is, well, from the date that we release this version of the podcast, or this particular podcast, will be a little over a week away. So I know that we'll have a pretty significant presence at VMworld, as we always do. The three of us, myself, Mr. Cortez, and Mr. Gebhardt, will all be there, along with Mr. Sizemore. He will be there representing FlexPod. I think that'll be the first time I've seen Glenn in person in the better part of 6 months.
I was about to say, it's like, yeah, it just didn't at all. Even he works here, and we don't see him because he's head down doing good stuff.
Yeah, and he typically records with us remotely, so I see him on a video screen occasionally. But so yeah, I'll be in the booth. I am, just working in the booth, giving demos, talking about DevOps, talking about VMware integration, talking about SolidFire, ONTAP, all of those other things. I know everybody has their own different sets of specialities. There's a number of demos in there. Mr. Gebhardt, any demos you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, so Mr. Cortez has been working for months now, actually, on getting a lab on demand experience ready for VMworld. So come by the booth and you can. Steve will show you the VSC7, all of its capabilities, the dashboards and such. We have a whole slew of demos. I think we had 62 the last time I counted that our staff could do live demos, and we have videos and recordings and such. And so we've got experts from almost every business unit and product in our portfolio that will be at the show. So come and find me, come and find Sully, and we can make sure that we direct you to the right expert to handle those questions. VIP meetings, make sure you bring your questions, locked and loaded, so that we can utilize that short period of time very effectively. Look forward to it.
Yeah, I always like to point out that we do make a very deliberate point of staffing engineers, right? The people who are literally working on this stuff, or the TMEs, right? The super smart people at NetApp who are doing these things.
Yeah.
Myself and yourself excluded.
A lot of companies bring their sales force because the SE community, because they have a technical background and they usually have quite a bit of breadth. And we've taken a different approach in that we bring the guys that are writing the papers, that are doing the lab work, that are the true experts, the ones that are able to go deep into each of these individual technologies. We also bring some developers too. So we've got the guys that wrote the Virtual Storage Console, the Snap Center integrations and such. So and then some technical directors that are providing the vision for where our products and our portfolio is going. So we bring the heavy hitters, and I think that's a definite advantage for us, that we can hopefully try to solve your questions and problems that you're having, or help you, challenge, take on the next challenge within your organization to be able to design your next generation architecture.
Yeah, and that was where I was going with that is, please don't just save those hard questions for a VIP meeting. Come to the booth, right? Because if you walk up to somebody in the booth, they're probably going to be able to answer your question. And if not, then there should be somebody within arm's reach that can answer your question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so sounds like VMworld is going to be a great amount of fun. I will not be there because I am not one of the smart people. So if we want to get in touch with you, if we're at VMworld or any other time, Chris Gebhardt, again, how do we reach you?
So you can reach me on email via cgeb@netapp.com or via the Twitterverse at Chris Geb.
Okay, and Stephen Cortez?
I can be reached via email, steven.cortez@netapp.com, or on Twitter at MSC Productions.
All right, that music tells me it's time to go. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email to podcast@netapp.com or send us a tweet at NetApp. As always, if you'd like to subscribe, find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, or via TechOnTapPodcast.com. If you like the show today, leave us a review. On behalf of the entire Tech on Tap podcast team, I'd like to thank Chris Gebhardt and Stephen Cortez for joining us this week. Thanks for listening. Have fun at VMworld, guys.
Thanks.
You get to go to Vegas multiple times this year. Isn't that exciting?
I'm looking forward to it moving back to San Francisco in the future.
If it does. You never know. They might like Vegas so much and all that cheap rental space.
So, yeah, but yeah, we get to be in Mandalay Bay twice in, 5 weeks?
Something like that.
Yeah. You can never get too much of Vegas is what I say.
The best thing about Vegas is leaving Vegas.
Yes, I agree. Plus, you get to go in August. That's fantastic.